Absolutely. What's up, Kira?
Nothing much. You here living, learning and living.
Learning and living. All right. So, we had a fun day the other day.
I had an amazing time.
It was a great day. So, have you seen the title of this video?
I have.
Okay. So, it could be controversial for some people, but what do you think? So the title, as you guys have read, is The Day in the Life of Two Negritos in Guadalajara, Mexico. So what do you feel? I'm going to give you my perspective, and I'm going to give you the perspective of a local. But what do you feel about the term Negrito?
Initially, when I heard the term Negrito, I was a bit offended coming from the U.S. and also being raised in the South.
See, I was raised in the West, so totally different.
Yeah. So anything around Negri-inty things,
Yeah.
So Negrito initially was a little bit alarming.
Okay.
However, after educating myself, talking to people, I understand that it is a term of endearment.
A term of endearment.
Yes.
Yeah. Hard pill to swallow. Has anyone referred to you as Negrito?
No,
Okay.
no one has referred to me, not at least to my face.
Facts. Yeah.
But no one has referred to me as Negrito.
Okay, me either. What do you think your response would be, especially, so like we have similar coffee shops that we like to go to, and whenever I go into the coffee shop, generally people know me because I go to the same ones. All right, Kira, so how do you think you will respond if you walked into your local coffee shop and one of the employees that you know referred to you as Negrita?
If it were before I knew, I would have been like, say what, come again?
Facts.
Now it would be more so as, ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué tal? Like, how are you doing?
Okay.
Because I know what it means.
Right.
But previously, no, I would have been like questioning, should I move? Was this the right move for me?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because, I mean, you can tell me about your experience, but since I've been here, Tapatíos are the most amazing people. They're the friendliest, most helpful, nice. They're interested in American culture. They're interested in learning English. So my interactions have always been good. So I think it would be a conversation starter if one of my worker friends were to refer to me as Negrito. They're like, oh, where did that come from? Why did you use that word? It's like, oh, does that mean like I'm your brother? You know, what the deal is. Yeah.
But I think that also comes with your personality as an expat. I think expats looking to integrate into culture have to have a certain type of perseverance about them as well as personality anyway to really gain a rich, robust, full experience. That's in my opinion.
Okay. I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
So with you're more so of welcoming, inviting, and have a very charismatic way in terms of integrating yourself. Okay. Versus me, I will integrate myself, but I will wait for the opening.
Gotcha. So then that would be your opening. If it happens.
Yeah, if it happens, then I would have been like, what? Like, come on, like, ¿qué significa? Like, what is the significance of you saying that?
All right, Spanish.
Yeah. I took Spanish classes.
Right.
Imperative. We can come back to that.
Yeah.
But, whereas you would have been inquisitive about it,
yes,
naturally.
Yeah.
For me, I probably would have been a bit more reserved and talked a little bit more before I would have said, like, what is the significance of that? You would have jumped right in. Yeah. So I've also met other expats that are extremely reserved. Like they come through, they live here for years and just have not integrated. Sure. So they may have just, that could be an opportunity or time for them where they would have internalized that.
I agree. I just personally have concerns with moving to other places and not trying to integrate on some level in the culture that you're living in because in my opinion, it's kind of like a colonizer mindset.
It is.
Right? You go and you're just taking advantage of what that culture, people, place has to offer you.
Right.
And not how you can become a part of it and learn and then turn around and actually be of benefit and be of value to those people. Right? You know, one of the things that I've been thinking about is how can I be of service in Mexico?
Yes.
Right? And so I think we've had this conversation of how much I love dogs and how much I love pit bulls. And I think at some point in the summer, once I get more situated in my housing situation, I think I'm gonna find a place to volunteer, you know, with animals. But with the Negrito thing, I think the challenge for expats is, again, when I mentioned a colonizer mindset, someone said, and it may have been Krishan of Black Global, you have to decolonize your mind.
Most definitely.
And it's easy to come into this environment and experience something that looks like, sounds like, smells like an experience that we had in the States.
Yeah.
And it is remotely not the case.
Right.
And so I would hope in that situation, if it presents itself, that I would immediately remember that this group of people, and not all, because you know you're gonna have racists everywhere. I mean, Black people are the most hated people on the planet, but that's a whole nother video.
Sure.
But yeah, I wouldn't want to walk into that situation and project all of my past experiences onto them.
Yeah.
Even with Mexicans in America, right? Because unfortunately, that culture permeates the society there. And I think a lot of people attempt to gain proximity to whiteness, regardless to what their race is. But here, I have a friend who lives in Puerto Vallarta, and he is from Durango. Durango is kind of northwest of Guadalajara, and he's our color.
Yes.
Literally. I mean, it's like, he's about my color. And he told me of his experience being a Mexican. He's Afro-Mexican, but he's not Afro-Mexican in the sense that he's got like a Black parent and a Mexican parent. His family goes back generation Mexican. So he's Mexican, he was born here, he was raised here, but he looks like you and I.
Yes.
And he dealt with racism his whole life.
Yes.
And that's where I first learned the term Negrito, because he uses it to describe himself, right? In his social media ads and things of that nature, it's always hashtag Negrito. And I'm like, why do you do that? And then he explained his situation and how he has to defend himself as a Mexican, as a darker brown-skinned Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the term. I think it's cool. So we'll see how my response is if and when.
I like it. I know what it means. I know it's a term of endearment, and I know the ita, if you put on the end, whether it's like talking about your abuela or abuelo, but if you put abuelita, like it's like extra lovey, like that ita.
Yeah, that's true. It's my little
just a different level of love, admiration, and appreciation.
Absolutely.
And I get it a lot. People say, "Oh, you look so unique," and I was at the store the other day, and the woman said, "I just love your skin."
What do you do? Have beautiful skin, right? Check out her social media because you got some new skin situation stuff going on. Okay, go check it out. Designing Ease, but obviously it's going to be in the description.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our day. So you heard that I was going out on the train, and you wanted to join. So we did. We got together, did that. What was the best part of that day for you?
Well, first let me back up. You know, sometimes people just talk things, and I put it out there like, you say, like, let me know if you want to see these things. These things are great in Guadalajara. So I'm like, sure, I want to do it.
Yeah.
If call you out and follow through on your word was a person.
Well, I'm like, if we're going to do it, let's do it.
So that was it. I think the best part of the experience for me was just having an open agenda.
That was
and
amazing.
really immersing myself. Like I just wanted to like immerse all of my senses in the experience. Things that I'm seeing, the sound around us, the language, the cars, the different smells, because at one point we were in by the market, really crowded, so you smell the street vendors and the food.
Okay, you real deep. I wouldn't have even gone that far in.
But that's how I love the entire experience
fully
of it.
sensory.
The full sensory experience of it. And being a part, like riding the bicycle. Okay, so I have this thing called the joy jar that every year when I feel immense joy, I capture like what gave me joy.
Whoa.
So even the experience of getting the MeBC bike pass and that first time riding the bike, that was not like, it gave me joy. So to get back on the bike, it was very joyful, like internally joyful.
So it's just the simple things.
The simple things,
yeah.
So I felt joy in that, and then being able to navigate the sidewalks and go and do things. So that was great. And then for me, just having an open mind, because I told myself, I'm never getting on the bus. Like, I'm just not. I just want to get on the train.
Well, I kind of said that too when I first got here.
I said, no, I'll get on the train, but I'm not getting on the bus.
And there's different levels of buses here. But continue.
That's what we learned. So when we get on, I'm like, wait, is this a bus? But I think for me, that goes into just the experience of it. It was like, oh, well, we're on the bus. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
So that for me, it feels, that is how I design ease. That's a life of ease for me.
Okay. That bumpy ride?
Even the bumpy ride was ease. It was ease.
Okay.
Everyone was respectful.
Facts.
We got where we needed to be safely.
Yep.
People were helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
So all of that
very respectful, kind. Yep.
All of that to me is easeful living. So it was just a whole sensory experience.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just dope. Okay. So we ended up taking the bus first. We got out to the park, which, I mean, I'd been there once before. And so after that, then we got to experience the train, which was different. And so why it's important and why I think both of us said that we would not ride the bus when we first got here is Mexico is a different culture. I'm from Los Angeles, she's from Atlanta. They're major metropolitan cities. I don't know, Atlanta doesn't really have a great public transportation system, does it?
It doesn't go out to suburban areas.
Okay.
So.
But within Atlanta proper, it's good?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's just okay.
It does what it needs to do.
Right. And Los Angeles is about 35,000 years behind in building its public transportation system, which, I mean, it's good, but that's a whole other story.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, so most of our buses, our trains are still modern. Where here you have the range from very old buses and almost no structure to the routes to a train system that's modern, that has routes that take you through the city.
Right.
And so the red buses are the ones that are the older ones.
Yeah.
And basically, in order to catch the bus here in Guadalajara, you have to know where the bus stop is because there are no signs. And you literally have to stand out in the street.
Like this.
And you gotta flag the bus driver down. And he or she may stop or they may not stop. So that's the challenge of not even knowing where the buses pick you up or even drop you off. Because I've also heard that on those red buses, if you have a stop in mind, and again, you have to know where it is, he may stop or he just may slow down.
Exactly.
And you're just kind of like jumping off the bus and,
That's why I was so hesitant because I've heard varying stories about it.
Yeah.
And my Spanish is growing. It's growing.
Keep it positive.
So I wanted to make sure that whatever route that I took, that I would know where to go, get off and ease.
Yeah.
So the electric ones. This one on that electric line,
Yeah,
which is
similar
what
to it.
we roll.
Right, and it's one that goes past both of our apartments. We live in different apartment buildings, but we live on the same street.
Right.
And it's one that goes right down our street.
Yeah, so that was perfect.
Yeah.
I can ride those.
Yeah, and that was my second one. So the first time I rode a bus and a train was with my Spanish school, my Spanish class. And then the second time was because I ride BBC to school, and when I went to the station close to my house, there were no bikes. And I didn't know that I didn't know where the next one was. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I remembered, oh, there's money on my card because I just rode the bus. And literally the bus was across the street from the station. So, done. I just ran and hopped on it and figured it out as we went.
See, I would have called an Uber. I would have said, let me just call an Uber.
Which is good and easy, right? Because Uber's here, I mean, we don't want to hurt the feelings of anybody in the major, city. And I'll be going to LA very shortly where my Uber charges are going to be 8 to 10 times what we pay here. But yeah, the most I paid in the Uber ride, not counting coming from the airport, $6.
Yeah,
maybe?
about 6.
And that's high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually
That's
like
going like 30, 45 minutes somewhere.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, where when I was in LA the last time, I think they quoted me $65 to go from the airport 5 miles to my best friend's house.
Yeah.
Which is highway robbery.
It is.
All right, Karen, we're gonna move on. So let's talk about living in Guadalajara.
I love it here.
Before I even ask the question, you're like, I love it here.
I do. I love it here.
But tell me about your experience living here as a solo Black female.
Just living here, period. Sometimes I forget that I live in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's how comfortable I am living here. And it's when I go out and I hear the language and I start to see things, that's when it's like, oh yeah, I live in Mexico.
Right.
That's how at peace and at ease I am. No one stares at me or treat me any differently. Everyone's extremely friendly and welcoming. And I really enjoy it. This is a piece that I did not, something that I thought about, but didn't realize just how attainable it was.
Okay. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess I feel a similar way. It is not the States.
Definitely.
As far as infrastructure is concerned, there are definitely differences and in some cases challenges. But I think the good outweighs the bad. Let's put it that way, right? However, there are situations and environments that we find ourselves in where those aren't challenges, right? Like this building. So the building you live in looks like any other modern luxury high-rise that you would see in a major city.
And that's why I sometimes forget that I'm in Mexico.
Right. Yeah.
So there are certain places that I frequent that is another apartment building, another grocery store, another clothing store, another mall, another restaurant.
Yeah.
And then there are other parts that, reality sets in where I have to make sure that I'm navigating in a way that's culturally responsible. And that I'm being mindful of certain things and making sure that my resources are being circulated in the way that they need to go.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, to give back.
Because
like in LA, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't know what you spend here, but I know what I spend down the street. It would easily be 4 times the amount of money.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially in the type of area that we're in.
Which is a whole nother, absolutely.
Yeah, in the type of area that we're in.
Yeah.
If I had an apartment like this in Atlanta, it would be 3.5, 4 times the rent. Yeah. But coming here as a single Black queer woman, I don't feel othered. I don't feel othered.
So you don't feel othered in any of those categories, being a black woman, being a queer woman, being a single woman?
No.
Yeah.
No. And that was one of my deciding factors of coming to Guadalajara, because it was classified as the San Francisco of Mexico.
I heard that. Yeah. The San Francisco of Mexico.
So I'm like, okay, well, let me go. So it does feel affirming to me, especially on the street that we're on, when you go down and you see same-sex couples.
True.
Young and old.
Absolutely.
Openly showing affections, holding hands, and so forth.
Right.
So it's a thing, like no one bats an eye, no one's ridiculed over it. So that gave me another level of safety and an additional level of ease in my life.
Okay, I like that. And I don't know if your experience in groups that have been mixed as far as sexual expression, gender expression is concerned. I find that people who are not queer, like you said, don't bat an eye.
They don't.
And you just find yourself in friend groups where everyone is just everyone, right?
Yeah.
Regardless to ethnicity, age, sexuality, any of those things.
Yeah, and I think that ties into not feeling othered. My experience before moving here, identity played a big part in all decision making. And identity is not at the forefront here in terms of how people engage with you in most situations. I know that there's a larger conversation that has to happen, but that is happening in terms of colorism, race, classism, and so forth. But in my everyday experience, in the way that I navigate, identity is not at the forefront.
It's interesting because you mentioned some of the isms, and classism definitely is something that's experienced in Mexico. And for lack of better words, I think we land on the positive side.
Yeah.
Meaning we're treated better. So the ism that I think we experience is our blue passport.
Right.
Right. So we don't look like, or at least I've not had the experience where someone has mistaken me to be a person of the African diaspora that's either from Africa, from the Caribbean, or some other place where I would be othered. They assume that I'm American, and maybe it's the way that I operate in the street, the way I walk, the way I dress. Clearly, once I open my mouth, it's a wrap.
Once I say something, but my name. So they assume that I'm Colombian most times.
Shakira.
Yeah.
But even though you pronounce your name Shakira.
Yeah. Yes, I say Shakira, but to them it's Shakira.
It's going to be Shakira regardless. Yeah.
And I do get preferential treatment, like, oh, Shakira.
And I end up calling you Shakira sometimes because it just,
That's how I pronounce it in most cases when I'm meeting a Tapatia. I just say, my name is Shakira, you know.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, okay. And they get it, they like it. It's a way to connect and open dialogue.
Okay, sure.
And they really get excited about it.
Really?
So that's like always my shoe in.
See, you are Afro-Latina. I like it.
Yes, and then they start speaking Spanish. I'm like, not too much.
You're like, I'm not that Shakira. Right.
Slow down. Let me work on it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because speaking of Spanish, it depends on what day I wake up, but generally I don't feel bad about my level of Spanish. And the reason being is Mexicans here, one, want to learn English so badly.
Yes.
And I mean, I have friends at, again, our coffee shops like at Chai. When Cesar sees me coming, he lights up. Because he knows, today I get to speak English. Yeah. No matter how bad his English is, he knows he gets to speak with me, and then obviously I get to practice my Spanish. And all Mexicans assume that their English is horrible.
And it's not.
No matter what level they're at. They think I have friends who are like 85% Spanish, and they're, 85% English, and they still complain. Oh, my English is so bad. And I'm just like,
no, your English is perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, it's better than some English.
Native English speakers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I find that, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about living in Guadalajara. When I do try to make an active practice of speaking Spanish, even if it's a couple of words.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will revert to English, and I let them know, like, necesito practicar, like I need to practice. So some say, can I practice my English? And I say yes, and I'm going to speak Spanish. So we'll help each other that way. And I've also been in situations where I am trying to get business done, and people will stand to the side and, when appropriate, step in and introduce themselves and offer assistance for me.
Yeah,
and that's something that has been, I call it a God wink every single time that it happens. And people interject, and then other times people ask, like, oh, English, because I, in my Spanglish, I went to the flower shop earlier, and I was attempting Spanish, and she said, do you speak English? And I said, yes. So she started speaking English to me, but I continued to try to speak Spanish. And at that point, one of the common practices that I do, I'll say, like, como se dice? And then, they'll tell me, and then I'll say it back, and I say, am I saying that correctly? And they'll, correct me. And it's very casual, 1 or 2 words, and we keep it going. And I have a note in my phone, and I'll just write it in my phone, like, this is a common word for me to know. And that's how I grow my vocabulary.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's not as difficult to live in a country whose primary language is not English.
No, and I think that's the misconception, that you're going to move to Mexico and no one outside of the United States speaks English. I'm like, no, it's people here, a lot of people here that speaks English. But I feel it's an obligation. The least that I could do is learn Spanish.
The least, absolutely.
The least I could do is learn Spanish.
Yeah, since you live in a Spanish-speaking country.
Correct. That's the least you could do, is learn the language. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. What else I got for you? Tell me some of the, let's call them pleasant surprises that you've experienced since you've moved to Guadalajara.
So many. So as we were so many. So of course, the amount of people that speak English.
Surprise.
I always knew that Mexicans were friendly.
Sure.
That's the reason why I wanted to move to Mexico. But people here are extremely friendly.
I think Guadalajara is a little different than.
I visited other places in Mexico.
And they're great, but
Guadalajara and the Tapatíos, they treat you like family.
Absolutely.
Immediately. So that, in my trauma and American skepticism, at first was like, why do you want to be so nice to me? But it's like,
you want something.
You want something, and it's really them just genuinely caring for you and caring for your well-being and caring for each other. Like, the sense of community here is so refreshing, and it was healing for my soul that I didn't know that I needed. It is so refreshing. So that has been a pleasant surprise. The other surprise is the food. Oh my gosh.
Baby.
The food.
And then there's the food. we eat quite well up in this joint.
Any type of food that you want, you can find. And even in the area that we live in, if you want Italian, Lebanese, Indian.
Okay, you've been to some spots you ain't called me about. I don't know about the Lebanese.
The Lebanese spot is just right down the block. So any type of food you can get here, easily accessible. That's been a pleasant surprise. And the other pleasant surprise is the growing Black ExPat group that we have here. So it's growing in how we are looking to mend and build a sense of community within the Black ExPats. That's something that I really appreciate here, and it's been pleasantly surprising and helpful, especially with the amount of people within the group that have lived here for years.
Sure, absolutely.
For years, that's able to help navigate that unknown territory.
And let me jump in because it's interesting. I had a Tapatio friend ask me the other day, we hadn't seen each other in a couple of days, and he was like, something's different, right? In his broken English, right? in my broken Spanish, but hey, that's how I got to learn. He was like, something's different. And he was like, are you depressed?
What?
And I'm just thinking, you don't know me well enough to ask me if I'm depressed, right? And then he went into this thing, and maybe because he saw his therapist that week, I don't know. But he was like, well, you know, you've moved to a new country, and you're away from your family and friends, and the language barrier. He was like, are you okay? And I was thinking, I'm fine, you know, and we moved past that. And then when I woke up this morning, I was like, one, why would he ask that question? Mm-hmm. And two, I am kind of feeling some kind of way. And what I discovered, and we're going to now transition into it, is I miss my male friends, right? Not especially black male friends, but I miss my male friends because all of my expat friends here are female.
Yes.
And two of my closest male friends here who are Tapatios are in relationships. So they got partners and lives and things, so we don't like hang out or talk that often. And then my single Tapatio friends, we all have the language barrier. So it's only so far that I can go on a conversation, right? You can't get really deep or, share, whatever's, going on emotionally or any struggles or whatever, only because if I open myself up, then it's going to be difficult to have the conversation because either I'm not going to be able to express adequately so that they can understand, and I'm definitely not going to understand what they're saying.
Right.
So, it's good that I'm going to go back to the States, in a couple of days because I get to hang out with my boys. But in my opinion, there are not enough black men in Guadalajara that are expats.
Yeah, or they're passing through. They don't necessarily that was something that I had to also adjust to, that a lot of people coming through are only here temporarily versus you and I and a few others that are looking to plant roots here. Yeah. So oftentimes you begin building relationships with people that are here just for a few months, and then that connection kind of goes away. So that was an eye opener for me, but also just I think we experienced that same feeling, but for different reasons. But I did find myself going through a period of time that I was grieving the life that I had and the life that I thought that I was going to have. So all of the work that I put into creating and designing this life of ease and shifting everything, every single thing that I wanted, I got. Okay. But then I was experiencing feelings of sadness because I guess the reality setting in that what was is no longer. So I did go through a period of grieving and mourning, and then come into this revelation of, well, who am I now? Who am I now? And what does my life look like now? And what do these new relationships look like? Because I have still have a very close-knit group of friends that if I'm feeling down, I can't call you and say I'm just about to come over and crash on your sofa. Right. Because I need to catch a flight to go and see you.
Exactly.
So I've had to find very creative ways to keep those relationships and nurture those relationships. Despite the lack of physical connection that I know that I need. That's people talk about love language and that show up in different ways. And for me, with my friends, like being in physical proximity was important for me. Outside of like sometimes I just need a hug, right?
No, absolutely.
But just having that physical proximity. So I've been intentional about crafting what that is supposed to look like. But yeah, that happened to me for a few months, and I was asking myself, like, you got everything that you wanted plus more.
Yeah.
Like, what is this feeling that's going on?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, that's grief.
Wow. Okay, let me write that down. No, I mean, that's good, and it's good that, you know, we have each other, this community that we have here, we have each other, because we're going through similar things, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, my best friend, we talk quite often. Sometimes it's every day, every 2 days, every 3 days. We haven't talked a lot this week because I'm going to stay with him in a couple of days. But I have 2 other friends who are actually coming to Guadalajara, right? One is coming to check it out because he's retired and he wants to see if this is a place that he might want to live. I'm like, yeah, you need to be here. And then another friend who also is retired, but he just wants to get out and travel and see something different. So he's going to come and see as well. So, yeah, it's that reconnection to my brethren. That I long for, and I guess I have to kind of grieve that. Yeah. But from your perspective, as a black woman, because black women, as far as the expat space is concerned, y'all out here. Outside. Doing it big. I mean, all over the world. When I was just in Lisbon, I told you, Black's a Global, Krishan, and then Black Utopia is out there, and Shar from the Expat Chats is out there, and then you got Mexico City with Rashida and Adelia and Stephanie and
Krista. It's so many.
I mean, all over, you know, black women are out here making it happen, and 90% of the people I mentioned, Sandra, who was here, who is now in Southeast Asia, all over the place. D in San Miguel de Allende. Look, they just keep coming up, right? All of those people are, a couple of those ladies, as I'm talking about women, are retired, but many of them quit their jobs.
I quit mine.
And you
quit it. Smoke out.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Gotta go. So women have taken the reins in their own lives. You women have taken control and made these decisions to pursue, build, live lives on your terms that work for you abroad. Why do you think black men, in the same numbers that black women have, are not doing that? Ooh. And this is your opinion as a black woman.
Ooh, where do I start?
Imagination.
Them on a hamster wheel instead of just zooming out to say, what do I want my life to be? I have been coming across several black men in the social space. One guy out of Washington, D.C., I believe. No, he was out of California that took a sabbatical and $10,000 and went all throughout Southeast Asia. A young black guy. I forget his name. I'm going to give you his name. So there are a few that I'm coming in contact with. So I think just men are sometimes under this thing that they're supposed to somehow like have it all and do it all and build this American dream.
That is a result of the racial trauma that black men have experienced from slavery to yesterday. And it's just a response. It is a response to our socialization, our survival in a world that not only hates you, and I'm using that word intentionally because there is hatred for black skin around the world.
Yes.
In all kinds of um, demonstrative ways, be it you are African, African American, some African European, or a dark-skinned anybody, you know, a dark-skinned Indian, a dark-skinned even Asian. There's just this hatred for darker hues, but specifically for those from the African diaspora. And then you take the American experience of slavery and what that demonic institution did to black men. And it was the black family, the black people, but it was very demonstrative to black men to keep all black people in line.
Yeah. And I think to your question, why aren't they getting out? Many of them are still stuck in that cycle of it.
Sure.
So it's a lot easier then at that point to get in relation and try to control that relation instead of saying, how do I take hold of my life and see something bigger for myself? It's more so, especially black men now, learning to navigate corporate spaces, like moving out of blue collar type of work and navigate in corporate spaces, entrepreneurship, and I guess learning how to just reign in that, right? Just how to be masterful in that instead of just taking a moment to even dream bigger than that, to say, let me see the world.
But the world for us as black men has been such a difficult space. So I've been a white collar corporate America worker for most of my career. Outside of my smaller stints working in higher education and in the nonprofit space, but mostly it's been in corporate America. And working in human resources for many years, I was the only man in the in the HR space.
That's it, and that's why most men they're just not getting up into that. Even the percentage of black men with PhD or higher education, like that percentage is still so small. You know, less than 5%, but it's a growing. So I think I guess the most simplified thing, I don't think most black men dream big enough, honestly. And it's because of all of these external factors and the way that these things have been set up. So they just don't dream as big. Because normally when you think about black travel, it's usually a group of women, they get together and take these girl trips, right? And I don't think the dreaming is there.
I like the way that you put that, because I'm going to use myself as an example. When I was married and raising children with my ex-wife, there was no time to dream.
Because you were stuck in that hamster wheel of trying to provide the provision.
Provide for the kids, trying to better myself, going to college while having a full-time job, while raising kids, while blah, 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 blah. So yeah, there was no time to dream. And now, you know, post-divorce, I remember receiving a call from an airline reminding me, hey, you got this ticket, this unused ticket, right, that I had purchased for some family stuff. And at the time, I really didn't have a budget to be taking a trip anywhere. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? And at this point, I had never traveled alone. I've always traveled with somebody. Friends, ex-wife, whatever. And I'm like, okay, where can I go for cheap that I haven't been before in the US, right? I literally pull out a map and I'm like, Texas. And then I talk myself out of that. In this state, in that state, whatever. And I settled on Chicago. I was like, I've never been to Chicago. Boom, I'm going to Chicago, but I'm going on a almost non-existent budget, right? That ended up being the best trip that I had ever taken. And I went with no money, lived in hostels, couldn't rent a car, and just made the best of it and saw all of Chicago, either walking, public transportation. I saw amazing museums. I went to the Obamas. That was right when they went to the White House. Amazing restaurants for cheap. And it taught me, oh, you could get out here and you can do this travel thing, right?
Yeah.
And that sparked the travel bug in me.
Yeah.
And where I've now traveled all over the world alone. And people still freak out. Oh my God, you're going where by yourself? You know, I just got back from Europe for 3 months alone. Because I don't need anybody to authorize, co-sign, approve for me to not only travel, but to now move out of the country where I was raised.
So how do you get men, more specifically Black men, off of the hamster wheel? Because most of them they don't think about it. And I'm typically, when I talk about Black men, my lens is a very siloed lens.
Sure.
And it's really based on the men that I grew up with.
Sure.
Right? Which have limited education, resources, experience, and exposure.
Okay, absolutely.
So,
all because of the reasons we talked about.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like when you say, well, why are Black men doing it? Most of them are just trying to control their household and make this money, right? To be able to provide.
Sure.
So they just don't think about it. So how do we get them to think about it and dream big?
Black men do travel, usually with a partner or a spouse. However, the numbers for single or queer Black men are low, as it relates to moving abroad.
I can only talk about my experience, and I got to a point, and I'm going to talk about this in more detail in future videos, but I got to a point when I had traveled to enough places and found the joy, right, in those experiences, learned more about who I am, because when you put yourself in a different space, a different geographical space, and you have to operate differently in that space, it becomes a journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And you learn that, oh, I don't like these things. Oh, I like these things. Oh, I have this talent, gift, ability that I didn't know that I had because I didn't have to use it where I live. All of these things. And so from all of those experiences, it got to a point that I valued experiences over things. And so living in Los Angeles and on the hamster wheel of, I have to have this position, I have to make this amount of money, I have to drive this at least level car, all of those things, and it became futile because I'm like, okay, so once I'm making X amount of dollars, then what? I mean, yeah, I could make more money, but what does that say about me? Or, you know, so if I drive a Beamer or Benz, most of the time it's going to be parked because I take public transportation to work. And in my opinion, I think those things really aren't about comfort, but they are about being able to display to other people what I have, what I am, what level that I live at. Right?
Victim myself of that, so I get it.
Yeah, because I've owned a Mercedes before, and it's like, but I like my German Volkswagen better than my German Mercedes. And it treated me better.
Yeah, I
it was
had a Volkswagen too, and I miss it. I wish I would have kept, but anyway, but
right.
yeah, I'm a victim of that as well. But
yeah, so wanting to have experiences over things, I decided to downsize and become more of a minimalist and not care about what people thought about me, not trying to impress people by my education, by my corporate status, by the amount of money that I make, any of those things. And started to pursue, how can I live a life that's richer but less expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and I was able to do that, one, because at the time I was single.
Yeah.
And my children, my youngest was maybe a junior or senior in college. So I'm about to become an empty nester. I don't have the same financial responsibilities, that I did when they were all growing up.
Yeah.
So I was able to free my mind to think differently and not continue to hold value on these external things. And living in a space and a place, and a city that was just astronomically expensive. And not getting the value out of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you in Atlanta, but for me it was like, okay, I'm working all these hours and then the overtime and whatever, and I had a nice car, and I had a nice condo, and I had nice clothes and blah, blah, blah. But it was just the same thing. It was like
over and over again.
Yeah, it was nothing to it. It really didn't mean anything.
Yeah. And I was so exhausted that I could not even enjoy the fruits of my labor.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for me, and again, in another video, I'll go into this, but the stress of living under that system, of the corporate pressure and the microaggressions and all the things that come with being Black in the corporate or any kind of working space, coupled with just the racial trauma that I lived with daily as a Black man, it was making me physically sick.
Same. Yeah.
And we were taught and conditioned to excuse it away.
Yes.
Right? So when I started having panic attacks, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I was like, oh, okay, just brush it under the carpet, whatever, it'll go away. And they dissipated for a while, and then they came back, and they dissipated, but then but each time it got worse and worse. Where now I'm seeing a psychiatrist and I'm on medication to just survive. And it got to the point that I just couldn't work anymore. And I had to leave work in order to survive. And then when I got more help, then I really found out how sick I was.
Yes.
Because it was manifesting into not just mental illness, but into physical illness. And that had to go. Because I'm like, I can't die because
trying to keep all this up.
Keep all the balls in the air. It just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And to discover, not only do I not have to keep the balls in the air, I can live a life that's so much better without the balls.
Correct. So I think it's just that whole American dream and men in particular. But I do think in a future conversation or to revisit, I'm starting to see a lot of younger families make the decision to raise their kids abroad, and they travel and they live a nomadic life. So I do believe that it's not a trend. I believe this is the wave of the future. And when we think about our age, right, boomers, Gen Zs, and so forth, I think that a lot of the younger generations, especially for BIPOC individuals and families, are beginning to take a different approach to freedom.
What's BIPOC for those who don't know?
Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Gracias.
So, de nada. Yeah, so I think they are taking a different approach, and I would say that is one of the silver linings of 2020 and having to shelter in place. I know for me, that was the catalyst for me to say, I need to make some changes in my life.
Yeah,
so I think a lot of the younger families, or typically when I see Black families, minority families that are traveling and living a nomadic life with their children, van life, right? These are younger families, and I'm at the crossroads where I have very traditional convention views on what retirement and life is supposed to be, but I'm also at an age or grew up in a space that like understand that I don't have to take any of this.
Right.
So I always teeter between those two, and that's typically where my internal conflict comes in, like teetering in between what those two things are, and then ultimately just saying what is right for me, like what is it that I need.
And that's the key. What is it that you need to live and grow and thrive, not only in a healthy space for you, but to be a healthy person?
Yeah, I tell people that the move to Guadalajara was to save my life. And people sometimes think that it's very drastic or I'm exaggerating, but that is the truth. It was to save my life. I felt like, one, the traumas of things began to manifest physically, as you mentioned. But I really felt like I was one traumatic experience away from being checked in somewhere.
Wow.
Just like, I'm like, I can't take in, like I'm at capacity.
Yeah.
Like I know that I was born for more. There has to be more. So when I began researching and finding other people that look like me, that live in other places, they were talking about the simple joys, sleeping throughout the night.
Sleeping throughout the night.
Having access to fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
Affordable fresh fruits and vegetables.
Almost free.
Right?
Yeah.
Feeling safe.
Yeah.
Like physical safety. Like it was just those simple things, and I'm like, ooh, I want that. Like I want that. So it really was to save my life. And I think that for me, I had to do something drastic. Like because I was so, when I say I was so ingrained in it.
Yeah.
The social status of it, and then acquiring things for the appearance, because there's a certain expectation that comes along with this. I'm like, I have to do it drastic, because I know that if I would have stayed, I probably would not have gotten off the wheel, because I was good at it.
Right.
I was good at it.
Right.
But I would not have gotten off.
Meaning you were good at what you did for a living, or you were good at being on the wheel, or both?
A little bit of both, but
Okay.
the exhaustion caught up to me.
Yeah.
Again, the silver lining of 2020 and having a chance to sit down.
Yeah.
Because before I would tell people everything that I had going on, I'd be like, that's a lie. And I'm like, is it a lie, or are you not doing enough, right?
Which is what we're conditioned to believe
Correct.
and operate under. And I can't even say the West, but America.
In America, right?
Yeah.
So
Are you doing enough? You ain't doing enough.
Like, you're not doing enough.
Right. Because when men would meet, you see somebody that you haven't seen in a while, and they be like, hey, how you doing? Are you working hard?
Yeah.
I'm like,
working hard or hardly working.
right. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. So I was good at both. I was good at navigating all of the different things. And then I've always been a high achiever in all of the spaces that I've been in. So that came with a level of expectation. My downfall was I was doing it with little to no support. Mm-hmm. And that built in, I know a lot of people talking about imposter syndrome, but for me, it was the instant genius syndrome. That I'm supposed to be in these spaces and automatically know what to do, how to show up, and have answers to things. So that in turn...
Is that what that's called?
Yeah, just like you're supposed to be an instant genius. Like, I don't know. I don't have this experience. Yeah. So that put a lot of pressure. So late nights, early mornings, excessive networking, and in order to present myself in experts, which took away the joy of just being a lifelong learner. Because it was I've obtained a certain level. So now, not only do I have to navigate that level in space well, but I have to be a mentor and teach others and groom others how to do it. And I'm like, well, no one even taught me.
Right. And how you gonna do all of that? We say 24 hours, which we don't even have, because 8 of it is supposed to be sleeping, and where we live, 2 of it is commuting.
Correct. I had an hour and a half plus both, like
Yeah.
each way. So sometimes 4 hours
Yeah.
just in commuting, and that was exhausting enough. So I think I was doing it well, but that 2020 was a silver lining. And I began experiencing a lot of anxiety about re-entering the normal world.
So did I.
Because I'm like, how was I doing all this before? And then when things began to like pick back up, that's when I began to fall apart. Because I'm like, I'm exhausted, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like I was firing at all cylinders, and that over-regulated nervous system became my norm. And when I was able to regulate my nervous system, I realized just how overworked I was all around. So getting back to that, I could never, I probably could have, but a part of me knew that if I were to get back to operating at that level, that it would literally take me out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was going to take me out. It was going to take me out. So I made a decision to prolong my life and come to Guadalajara.
I love it. I love it. I wish that I could say that I consciously was aware that this decision was to save my life. It was definitely to better my life because I didn't like what I had become or was becoming or living under. But when you talk about not being able to sleep at night,
Can't sleep.
so for me, 2020, the pandemic, you know, people say what you want. That was a blessing for me to be able to sit down, and I haven't been back to the office since maybe July of 2020. I haven't been in an office, which is amazing. But watching Breonna, Ahmaud, and George Floyd all be murdered, you talking about could not sleep. So I would have nightmares, or I'd wake up in the middle of the night because I just knew somebody was at my house. And I got security cameras, locks, all the systems of protection, and I couldn't sleep. And every single night I had insomnia for a good 18 months.
And being sleep deprived, that impacts so many things in your health, your cognitive ability to just do basic things.
Absolutely.
The basic things that you need to show up in your life because of that.
Yeah, and it's compounding because then it went into depression because I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah. And now I'm here and sleep like a baby.
Like a baby. Look, I got up at 10:10 this morning. That's when I woke up because I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That for me, ultimate life of ease. I tell people I do not wake up to an alarm clock. One time I did set an alarm clock here, and this is after like 9 months of just waking up. I always tell people I wake up whenever the good Lord wake me up. Like, that's when I'm gonna get up.
Yeah.
And I had to set an alarm clock to get somewhere. I had to change the sound because it was the old like boom, boom, boom. I woke up in such a panic.
Absolutely.
My heart was beating.
Absolutely.
At over like I can't even describe how anxious it made me feel. And I had a feeling for like 2.5 hours before it finally dissipated.
Yeah.
And it was just me setting my normal alarm. I had not set an alarm since I've been in the States and working.
Sure.
So this is the first time I had set one. So I didn't think to change the sound.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like, this is what you've been waking up to.
Yeah. So
for years.
Yeah.
So the sensation through my body was unreal.
I believe that because I've watched TV shows where the character had the same sound in their alarm, and I literally jump when I'm watching a show, and it just triggers me.
Yeah, it's very.
It's like I hate that sound.
It was triggering, and it was so scary for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just need to calm down.
Yeah.
And it was an alarm,
right?
Alarm clock
That you said.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was like, wow, this is what I was waking up to.
Yeah. And living under.
Yeah, living under. So for me, my thing now is just slow mornings. I wake up when God wake me up.
Yeah.
I take my time. I'm not in a rush to go anywhere or do anything. I sit on my balcony or go up to the roof. I enjoy my coffee.
Yeah.
I get things done around my house. Like I move at a slow pace to get things done. Versus before, I was being jolted out of my sleep. I knew I had 30 to 40 minutes to get dressed, brush my teeth, wash clothes, get the kids set up, and be in the car before I hit traffic. Then you sit in traffic an hour and a half, go to the job. Before you can put your stuff down, you got a meeting.
Yeah.
My brain hasn't even
Right.
caught up to everything.
Yeah.
So to move away from that to now,
Yeah.
I'm living the life.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the whole, because we both are HR professionals, this concept of work-life balance, all of these buzz phrases that corporate America has created over the years that we are now seeing challenged, like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is, to me, hilarious that there's this socio-political attack on that structure, if you will. But work-life balance, that's such an American thing.
It is.
Because in other countries, I mean, it's just built in that, life is more important than work. So the work will get done when it gets done, and we're going to live.
And add that to my list of surprises, pleasant surprises since moving here. So I drove my car from Atlanta to Guadalajara, which my car sits in the garage the majority of the time.
Yeah.
In 6 months, I've only filled it with gas twice, so that should give people a perspective of how much I'm driving.
Right.
Because everything's so accessible in walking. But I do take it out and get it washed.
I
I
do.
do. And put it right back. I go to the grocery store, get it washed, and come back. But once the guy, I found a local guy a couple blocks over, he washes my car.
Okay.
And one time he was washing my car and he stopped and he told me in Spanish, like, I have to leave to go and get my son and I'll be back.
Wow.
He's like, is that a problem?
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So he did. He was like, I'll be back. And he came back with his son and he finished washing my car.
Right. I love it. I love it.
That would never, in the States,
Yeah.
you mean to tell me you clocked in on my clock and you think you about to leave and go get your child?
Right. Absolutely.
And then bring your child back to the job?
Right.
That would never happen in the States.
My cousin once was doing some volunteer overtime on the weekend and had a newborn. And she was like, well, the only way that I'm going to be able to work is I bring my baby to work with me. And they're like, well, you can't bring your baby to work. And it's like, wait a minute, you asking me to work overtime on the weekend. I have a newborn and I'm still going to do it. And you tell me I can't bring my baby
And that's
to help you out?
Exactly. There's so many laws around it. But that for me was a beautiful moment. And he was like, I need to go get my child.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
As a parent myself, because I have been in many,
Right.
and like I said, I'm on the HR side of the business. HR
Right.
is supposed to be the human resource.
Which is a whole other HR is not your friend, you know. I can say that now.
Yeah, we gotta come back.
Yeah.
But I've been in many situations that I had to make a decision between my family and my career. And I hate to admit it, but I chose my career for many years over my family.
Oh, sure. I think we all have.
Many
On some level.
years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was the only way I was able to climb that ladder.
But would you say that I'm sure some of those situations were probably selfish because you wanted to climb the ladder to get to whatever pinnacle you're trying to get to. But would you also say that it wasn't selfish, that you chose your career because you were actually providing for your family?
That's the hamster wheel.
And the dichotomy.
Yes.
Yeah, so we choose the job over our family because we're actually trying to take care of our family.
Right. And and that's hard to navigate. And that's of course, is by design.
I was gonna say it's
It's by design.
Yeah, yeah.
So moving here and seeing how so many things are centered around family and not work. That for me is amazing. And that goes back to what I was saying in terms of coming from the States, everyone leading with identity. And you know, so who are you? What the first thing they ask, what do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living?
Right? And you don't get that here necessarily. I mean, they are curious because you're an expat and they're trying to figure out like
how you live in it.
How you live here.
And especially the neighborhood we live in, because it's, you know, for some, it's above the
average working class. And that's something I'm very mindful of. But that's the hamster wheel. But that was one of the reasons too why I chose here, because of how family centered the culture is, and that it's not centered around work. Like some businesses here, we're only open in the morning. right? Or we're only open in the evening
or during the week.
And that's another pleasant surprise that I enjoy about living here. Mornings are slow. That is the standard of the country. You trying to get up and go somewhere at 7 o'clock, nobody's open.
Baby.
Nobody's
so Starbucks
open.
And all the coffee shops in the States are open at 5 a.m. You can't find a coffee shop open here before 9.
Right, it's rare. You really have to.
Starbucks is open before 9, but that's it.
Yeah,
that's an American company.
But like a local store, it's a couple, but for the most part, coffee shops don't open until 9 o'clock.
If you know when it opens before 9, you gotta let me know.
I know one.
Oh, okay, because I was going to school when I was going to Spanish class.
That's how I found it.
Oh, okay. Class starts at 9, so how am I gonna get my? Oh, I did find one that opened at 8. Yeah, it is one that opened at 8.
And 8 is a suggested time because that means they're just coming at 8 o'clock. They didn't come at 7.
Absolutely. To prepare for 8.
Absolutely. That means I'm going to walk in at 8 o'clock. Oh, you want something? Have a seat. Give me 20 minutes.
You're right. Because the guy did look at me crazy because it was 8:05 and he was like, we ain't open yet. I'm like, it's 8 o'clock.
That's
like,
a suggested
fine,
time.
come on in. But
that's the time we show up.
Right. We think about starting work. Yeah.
But I love it because I get to wake up and like gather myself before I start my day because I know that I'm not missing anything. So the early bird getting the worm and the bird is asleep in Mexico.
The worm and the bird. Okay.
Everybody's.
Everybody's asleep.
We're asleep.
I love it. Well, I think we're going to end there. I was going to ask you another question about blowing up your life.